Okay guys, welcome back. In this video we're going to go ahead and do a few things with Keycloak. 1. Show how to use the Keycloak Admin REST API. 2. Do an example using the themes. And 3. We're going to show you how to use Google and Facebook to log into your Keycloak application. I'm going to be going over Keycloak again and how to use the Admin REST API. So this is going to be helpful because through the command line you'll be able to actually invoke this curl command, which will give you an access token, and with that access token you'll be able to actually get make requests to the Keycloak instance, such as listing out information and actually creating users for your Keycloak realms. Okay, before we actually go ahead and start this, we do need a Keycloak instance running on your machine, and this time I'm going to be using a Keycloak binary downloaded from the Keycloak website. In my previous videos with respect to Keycloak, I have been using a Docker container, but this time I will use a binary. So if you go to the Keycloak website and go to downloads, I'm getting an archived version from 15.02 to be similar to the Docker version that I have. You can go ahead and download the zip or tar.gz file. I already did so. I'm not going to do so again in this video. And you can see here I do have it downloaded. I do have the tar.gz file, and I extracted the contents. And if you go ahead to the Keycloak binary folder, you should see a file here called standalone script. If you go ahead and do that, your instance will load up. And just with the respect to the, with the Docker container, if you remember when I ran it, I did pass in an extra file that had database endpoints to an external database, which was a Postgres database within AWS RDS. If you don't specify that file, it will by default try to connect to the H2 instance, which is just a non-production type database that you can use with Keycloak. Here, I actually did update this to have it point to the Postgres RDS AWS RDS database, and I'm not going to show exactly how to do it from scratch, but I will show you what I've done. If you go to your Keycloak instance and you go to the module system layers Keycloak org, you're going to have to add the PostgreSQL folder that you see here. Now it already exists here, but this is something that you do have to add because it's not by default there. And what you want to add here is go into main, and then you're going to create a main folder within it, and then you're going to add two things. You're going to add an actual jar, and here you can get this from the website, or I should say online from the Postgres website or from the Maven repository. And then you need to create a module XML file, and the module XML file is going to contain these attributes, which is going to contain a reference to the jar file in the exact version that you just downloaded, and you can add this dependency section. And from here, your Keycloak instance has a reference to the Postgres binary that it can use to connect to a Postgres endpoint. In addition to that, you will have to update a configuration file. If you're running this application or the Keycloak instance in a standalone instance, then you can go into the Keycloak folder, standalone configuration, and open up standalone XML. And if you see here, there's two things that you need to do. One, in the driver section, you'll see here that there is an H2 driver section, and that's something that's by default there. But what is not there by default is this Postgres reference. That's something I did have to add, and so you want to update this to name it to PostgreSQL, update the module as such, have this line item here, XA data source class, also as such. And the last thing you need to do is, if you scroll up above, you're going to see a data sources section, and again, here is the default H2 database. Here you can add your endpoint information with respect to your Postgres instance. So here is my Postgres instance endpoint. I'm probably going to comment this out in the video just so I just hide the connection and log in credentials. But here you'll specify the driver again, which is a PostgreSQL, and username password to connect. So with that in place, I do have my Keycloak instance. Let me see here. I do have my Keycloak instance pointing to my PostgreSQL database endpoint, and now it's up and running. So if I go here online 1 second, and you should be able to see, but just open up a new page here. Go to localhost 8080, and here's my instance, and I can go ahead and log in here, and you'll see that I do have a realm created already, and this was basically the realm I've been using in my previous videos where I use Keycloak for my demonstrations. So let's just wait for this to load up. And you can see I do have, in addition to the master realm, I do have the realm one, which I've been using before. Okay, I know I went over that pretty quickly about how to actually point your Keycloak instance to an external database. But if you go to your Keycloak Docs website and go to the server installation, you will see the section that I'm referencing to, where you can see here that it's talking about creating a modules directory or going within a modules directory. And here's the example, creating an org PostgreSQL main folder. And here you can see how it talks about, creating the module XML and getting the PostgreSQL jar. And then also, of course, here's where it mentions updating the XML configuration file to include the driver and the data source for your Postgres instance. So you can see that being explained over here, and updating the data source for Keycloak to point to your endpoint. So just FYI, you can see that information here in Keycloak itself in the server installation folder or server installation link. Okay, now we can go ahead and invoke this curl command to your Keycloak instance. And this will give you the access token that you will be required to have to make REST API calls. So let's go ahead and just copy this 1 second. We'll paste this in a Word document here. And we're going to go ahead and actually replace this with your endpoint. So this here, the URL is fine because this is the default also for mine. And let's go ahead and update this as well. Again, this might be blacked out in the video, but you'll update this to be your login credentials. And if we go ahead and open up your bash, or I should say open up your terminal here, and we can go ahead and try to invoke this ourselves. And you're going to notice here a JSON response here, and there's going to be many fields that you have, but the one that we're most interested in again is the access token. So here's the access token. You're going to want to copy this, and this is going to be part of your next API request to Keycloak to get certain information. But one thing to note that documentation specifies, this token does expire in 1 minute. So what I think is going to be useful is to add this command to a script where we can make the command request, extract the access token, and then use that to populate for a future request that we want to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a script, a bash script to handle that for us. So if we go here and let's go ahead and create a just sample script. Let's add the bin bash. And let's go ahead and add this command. Go ahead and save this. Now, one thing this is going to do is this is just going to print that JSON string to the console output. But for us to use that in our script here, we're going to actually want to parse that out and assign it to a variable. And how we're going to do that is actually we're going to be using, I just copied this from another file that I have. We're going to be using this access token, or I should say we're going to assign this response to a variable called access token, and we're going to be basically doing the same command, so we don't need this first one anymore. And what we're going to do is we're going to be invoking the JQ utility, which is something that helps us parse JSON responses back on the command line. And if you don't have this installed on your Linux instance, you can do these two commands to make sure that you get JQ installed. So what this is going to do is it's going to invoke the curl command that we've been doing, or that I showed you before. And then at the very end, we're going to do a pipe and then JQR, and then you're going to specify the field name that you want to access. So here we wanted to get the access token, and I'm going to do a quick echo just to kind of print that to the screen. So as a sample here, and let me just make it executable, the sample script. You can see here is the access token and none of the other fields. So this is very useful for us because now we can use that access token variable and populate other parts of the script, or I should say populate the access token field required while we're making other requests. Okay, now that we have the access token from doing this curl command, let's follow along with the documentation, which has the next example basically getting details of the master realm. So you can see here, here's the curl command that's required, and the access token is going to be populating this part of the curl script. So let's go ahead and just copy this. We're going to go ahead and go back into our sample script file. Let's go ahead and paste this here. And just to add some space here, let's go ahead and add a new line. And here we're going to just go ahead and just kind of indicate getting master realm info. So essentially what we're going to do is just update this to remove this sample token that was there in the Keycloak documentation. And since we have this assigned to a variable called access token or access token, we're going to go ahead and just put in access token there. And you're going to see here when we run the script, we have master realm information. Now, it's not easy to read everything here, so a quick little tip you can do is you can go ahead and just kind of extract the whole JSON content. So you got to look for the open brace and then the end brace, copy it, and if you go to your browser and just go to an online JSON formatter, you're going to see a lot of free options that you can use, and you can go ahead and just paste here on the left side what you have, and then on the right side it's going to basically make it a lot more readable, and you can see the contents of your master realm here. So that's pretty sweet. Okay, the next sample command we're going to do is going to invoke the curl command to get the list of users for a specific realm. So you can see here in the REST API documentation, essentially you're going to add the realm and obviously the base Keycloak URL, and then the users, and then of course you're going to need the access token passed in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead, open up our sample script. We are going to essentially copy what's here above. So let me just go ahead and, yeah, you know what, let me just, instead of trying to type that up, let's just go ahead and copy this. And let me just replace this with getting realm 1 users. And if you recall from the REST API, you're going to specify the realm name and users as the end of the URL itself. So let's go here. We're going to go ahead and update master to be realm 1. And if we go back into our Keycloak instance, you can see that that is the name of the realm that we have that we want to get the list of users for. And if you actually go here to the users, you'll see that I have just, username test user 2, test user 3, and you can see these random first and last names created. So we're going to get realm 1 users, and once again we are using the access token that was created or that was extracted. And once again, this is something that gets expired every minute, so what was the access token in the last run is not going to be useful anymore because it's going to be expired. So if I go ahead and just save this 1 second and run it again, it's going to get the latest realm info from the master realm, which was the first script that we did. But now you can see here, here's realm 1 users, where here again is an array of JSON data. And if I go ahead and just kind of copy this, and we can go to the online formatter, you're going to see here, oh, hold on here, I am missing, yep, I am missing this whole first row. Let's copy this again. Here you go, a lot easier to read. You can see here that I do have test user, which has first last name of John Smith. I do have additional information here about the user, and then you can see here's test user 2, which is Adam Tarley. Then I have test user 3 here, Mikasa Jaeger. Anime fans know exactly what this is, so beside the point. That did a mix of the first name, last name between, you know, Mikasa and the person that she loves, Eren Yeager. But besides the point. Anyways, here's a list of users from this Keycloak realm. So you can see that this command is working just fine. You can see here again, getting the realm info, and here getting the realm 1 users. Everything looks great. So I guess just to make it easier for reading in the subsequent test that we're going to do, let's just go ahead and comment this out. We know that these work, so we don't have to run those again. Okay, the last command for this tutorial we're going to do is something a little bit more useful, I think, or just another useful thing. And we're going to go ahead and create a new user for a specific realm. So you can see that this is now going to be a post command, and now we're going to be specifying an actual user to go along with this command. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create a new curl command. So you can see I'm specifying post, and now here, the next line here, we're going to be actually specifying the information, the user that's going to be, the username and first and last name, and the email that's going to be used to create the user in this realm. So it's going to be in JSON format. So let's go ahead and do these strings, and we're going to have the open brace, end brace, and since this is encompassed by a string, the JSON values is going to be wrapped in a string, which means we have to have an escape character to escape the quote. So it doesn't read it as an actual quote, and just will have it interpret as a text quote. So we're going to specify the email field, colon, and here we're just going to assign a random email to it, EBCDEF, and I'll put just g.com. So that's the first entry of this user that we're going to create. Now we're going to go ahead and assign the first name. So once again, we're going to use the backslash quotes to escape the quote. So let's put first name, and then again, let's go ahead and create the user's name. So how about this time we just use somebody I think most of the world knows. I'm going to go ahead and create Lionel Messi inside this user, inside our realm. So there's the last name, Messi, and now let's specify the username. I forgot to wrap that in quotes. And I'm just going to go ahead and make this test user 4. And a quick typo here, username, this time it is not camel case, so that's going to be just all lowercase. And the next line here is going to be basically a copy of this authorization line, where we're going to include the access token. So I'm just copying it from the command above and uncommenting it. And here we're going to specify another header field for the content type. And we're basically specifying to the Keycloak instance that information being sent is in JSON format, so it knows how to read in the information. And here we're going to have the endpoint of what we're sending this request to. Which again is the same as above, but this was by default a curl command getting a list of users, but here we're specifying a post and passing information, and this is going to be posting this user to the Keycloak instance. So I guess before running that command, if you just go real quick to our Keycloak instance and look at realm 1, you'll see that I have a list of 3 users here. So test user 2, test user 3. There is not a test user 4 with Lionel Messi. So if we go back to our command line here, our Linux terminal, and run the sample script, okay, my mistake here. I forgot after this line to actually do the backslash over here. So now if I go ahead and run the sample script again, you will now see we have test user 4, Lionel Messi. which is great. This is exactly what we want. So now if we wanted to go ahead and just add another user here, we can go ahead and do that. So let's just change this, update this to be a different email. And now let's go ahead and have the other famous soccer star, Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm going to update the test user to be test user 5. So now let's go ahead and just run the script. That's just the access token, the very first part of the script. And now if we go ahead and click on view all users, you will see a test user 5 with Cristiano Ronaldo. So perfect, this is great. Essentially, this is the last tutorial or the last demo or example of how to use the REST API. You can see again that the main thing that you need to do all of this is to actually get the access token, which you can see here is the script to go ahead and do that. And then you can see here's just other basic commands to get information on the realms, get list of users, and actually how to create a user here itself. So, let me just kind of do this for completeness sake, just adding the comment here. And there you go. Okay, welcome back everybody. Today we're going to continue with Keycloak, and this time we're going to go ahead and talk about the themes. And essentially what a theme is a way to style, customize, certain pages with respect to your applications and Keycloak. So for example, the login page. You can see here in the Keycloak documentation, this looks like a login page using Keycloak, but this does not have the default standard Keycloak background. And in fact, this is something customized. So we're going to do an example of that right now. Before showing you how to create a custom theme, I just want you to note that the existing themes for a realm exist here. So if you go to your Keycloak admin console, go to your realm, you're going to see this themes tab over here. And you'll see there's a bunch of line items here for different parts that you can customize. Well, let's just focus on the login for now. You'll notice this drop down box. You will see several that I have here. A lot of these are actually ones that I've just kind of been playing around with, but the two themes that come default with Keycloak instance is the base and the Keycloak. So if we go ahead and click the base, I actually already have it saved, and you launch your app. Let me refresh this. I have my app chat application launched from Apache Tomcat server. You can see that the base theme is just plain and bare. So there's like no real CSS along with it. But if I go back over here and update the login to be Keycloak and save, we can go ahead and update or refresh this page. And you can see now it's still a login page, but it's using the Keycloak theme, and it definitely looks a lot more presentable than the base theme. And another one that I can do, and this is one that I was just working on myself, is the Chat v2 theme. This is one that I did, and if I go ahead and refresh this, let's give it a second, you can see it looks different. So this is something I kind of created, customized, so it's not too extravagant, but this tutorial isn't meant to be like CSS heavy, but just to show you a simple way to create a custom theme. So that's this, and I will show you how I did this in the subsequent steps. Now before we go ahead and create another theme, I want you to look at the Keycloak documentation here, and what we're going to do first is actually we're going to make this change to the standalone XML file. You'll see here that it has these 3 line items, and if you read over here, basically this helps so that when you're creating a new theme and you're making edits on the fly, you can just refresh your page that has the theme, and you'll see it being updated in real time. As compared to without having this, you will need to actually restart Keycloak to get your latest themes changes. So this does help while you're working on it. So as for me, I actually do already have that set. So if you're running this Keycloak instance as a standalone, which I am, you can go to the standalone subfolder and then configuration subfolder, and there's going to be a standalone XML file. And if we just search for the text theme, you can see here that I do have these 3 line items here, which correlate to what the Keycloak documentation specifies to help with development while you're working on the themes. Okay, let's go ahead and now create another custom theme. And if we look here in the documentation, you can see that to create a new theme, we basically have to create a new directory in the themes directory. So basically, if we go back over here, you'll see that in my Keycloak installation folder, I do have a themes folder. And you can see here are the the base and Keycloak themes that come along with it, plus these other ones that I did that we're just playing around with. So if I go ahead, I'm just going to go ahead and create another folder called custom theme. And per the documentation, right, we do need to create another folder for each type of theme. And what type means is essentially, if we're going to create a custom theme for like the login page, for the account page, and other pages that there are. So if I go back over here, go to my Keycloak admin console, here are the different types. There's a login, account, admin console, email themes. So we're just going to go ahead and create another folder called login, because that's what we're going to do for this demo. And so now we have a login theme. And one thing that's good to just, as an FYI, if you go to the base theme, you'll see that there's these 3 or 4 subfolders: account, admin, email, login. And so you can see that those pertain to these over here. So you can customize each one individually, or you can just customize one. You don't have to do all 4. But just as an FYI, that's what it means when it says, creating another folder for each type. Okay, now that we have the login folder for the custom theme, let's go ahead and create a theme properties file, which, as you can see from here, this basically allows for us to set some configuration for the theme. So just as this website says, let's go ahead and just kind of copy this as a demo, and we're going to paste this into the theme properties. Oops, hold on. There we go. And now it's saved. Okay, now with this theme property set within the new custom theme, let's go back into Keycloak admin console, and you may have to refresh or just click on a couple of tabs and come back to the themes. But you're going to see for the login theme, there is now this custom theme folder which we created, which is good. So if we go ahead and click that and select save, the custom theme login is now what we're going to see when we refreshed our main page here. And what you'll notice here actually is that it's going to look just like the base theme, because if you recall, the theme properties parent is the base. So it's going to look like it did before. Per the documentation, it says if you want to just see how it imports the other configuration. So if I change this to Keycloak, which is the other theme that comes default with it, and save, and if I refresh this, it's going to have the Keycloak theme. And the cool thing is that it has a Keycloak theme here, even though the login theme is set to custom theme. So that's something pretty powerful with this theme properties, with this parent field where you can set it to be base or Keycloak. So for now, we're just going to go ahead and set this back to base. And if I go back to the apps login page and refresh, you're going to see it's plain bare. So now one thing I want to do is actually add a logo to this login page. And so what we need to do is actually copy the login FTL file from the base theme. So if I go just back up a couple of folders, go to the login type, I'm going to go ahead and copy the login FTL file and copy it right into the same folder. So now you'll see that I have this login FTL along with the theme properties. So if I go ahead and open up the login FTL, you're going to see this default code here, or the default markup, which is used by the base theme. What I'm going to do here is just copy something that I have from the previous theme that I was working on. I'm going to add this div section, which is going to have a reference, basically a file that I created for the logo. So this is not going to work right now because this file does not yet exist in this theme. And for that to actually work, you will have to create a resources folder within your new theme. And as an FYI, right, if I go back to the base folder, you'll see here within the login there is a resources folder. And if I go within the resources folder, you're going to see that there is a JavaScript folder. And what is not here is that you can add a CSS folder and an image folder. So we're going to go ahead and add 3 folders within the resources. We're going to go ahead and add a JS, a CSS, and image. And if I go into the image folder, obviously it's going to be nothing there. But if I go ahead and copy what I have from a previous working one, you can see that I have these 2 files here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy both of these. And I'm going to copy these into the new theme, custom theme that I have. Go back to the other terminal here, and if I do LL, you're going to see those 2 themes. So now if I refresh, you're going to see there's my logo. So that's one way to basically insert a image into your custom theme. So far so good. Okay, now the next thing we want to do, now that we have the image there, is we want to apply some CSS changes to this theme. So back within the custom theme, we're going to back out of the image folder, and we're going to go ahead and go inside the CSS folder. And let's go ahead and create a CSS file. I'm just going to call this login style CSS. And basically we're going to do very simple. I'm just going to go ahead and have the whole body, like everything that's a text, I'm going to have them basically be centered and have a white font. So let me go here in the CSS. I'm going to go ahead and create this body tag. We're going to align things to the center. We're going to make the color of the text be white. And another thing we're going to do here is we're going to add a background image. So just like we created a reference the logo within the FTL file directly, we're going to reference an image to be part of the background of the whole body. So I'm going to put this here, and essentially this is the other PNG file that I copied over. So if I go back here into my image folder, you'll see that I have 2. One is the logo, which is right here, and then I have this other one, the background. So now I have this CSS file there, but the changes still won't take place if I refresh the page here. And that's because we still have to reference that CSS file to be used. And the way to do that is to go back into the theme properties file, and we're going to reference it here. And the way to reference it is to create another field here called styles, and here we're going to reference the path in the resources folder and the file name. So now with that saved and I refresh, you can see that the texts are centered. You can see the logo here, and you can see the background that I have. And as an FYI here, right, let me go ahead and just open up that file just so you can see and compare that, this is indeed what we loaded up. So just give me a second to come over here. You can see here's the 2 things. So here's the logo that I have, and here's the background that you see as well. So that's exactly what we have here on the screen. Okay, so now we have this. Another cool thing that you can do here is actually, if you go back to the themes, you'll see that there's this internationalization enabled. By default, it's off. If you actually select it to be enabled, you're going to see a whole bunch of different locales that you can support, which are essentially other languages that you can have your page translated to. If you click save, and let's go back here and refresh, you'll see here's a bunch of other languages that can be selected. Now, due to my, CSS update to my theme, it looks like this. So I could update the theme to be a little bit more, to format this better. But in the interest of saving time, let me go ahead and just update my theme to use the Keycloak base. And actually, let me go ahead and comment out my login styles. This looks a little funny. I could center that a little bit, but you'll see here, looks a little bit more, it's easier to just see in a screen, but you can see the different languages that you can select. And so if I go ahead and select Spanish, you can see here that the username and password text is now been replaced with the Spanish version of it. I can do the same thing with another language. So if I go ahead and select Dutch, you can see that as well. So that's something pretty cool with the Keycloak. If you just set this to be off, it'll default to use the English one. So if I go ahead and save and just refresh my page, you'll go ahead and see this. And just to make it look better, I'm going to go ahead and just remove this logo also from my login FTL. So let me just go ahead and do that. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and comment it out. I'm not going to exactly remove it. And there we go. So another cool thing about this is that you can go ahead and, if you look over here, you'll see that the user can create or have their own login password, but they can also sign in using their existing Google Gmail account or their Facebook account. Now, by default, your Keycloak RAM will not have this, but this is something that I did, and I'm going to undo right now just so I can show you how to do it from scratch. So let me go back into Keycloak Admin Console, and if you go into your realm, you'll go to identity providers. You can see I have a couple of entries here, one for Google and one for Facebook. So if I were just go ahead and delete these for now, and if I go back to my login page and refresh, you'll now see that I no longer have the option to log in using my Google or Facebook account. Okay, now that we created this Google identity provider in Keycloak, now it's time to go into our Google Cloud Console. So go to console.cloud.google.com and make sure you have an account. Once you're in there, you can click up here. We're going to create a new project. You can call it anything. I'll just do a Keycloak Google demo. Click on create. Once that's created, go back here and select the project that you just created. Now we go here to APIs and services. Okay, great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create credentials. So what we're going to do is click on here. And once again, make sure that you're in your new project that you created. We're going to click on create credentials, OAuth client ID, and it's going to give us this warning first saying that we must configure your consent screen. So we can go ahead and just click on that. Select external type. And now it's going to ask for more information again. So just type in, your app name. Just type in that. Support email. Just put whatever email that you have associated with this. Your domain. You can put in the home page of your application. So in this case, it is running on a local Apache Tomcat server, and this is going to be the home page. And I might as well just copy and paste that for the privacy policy in terms of service. course, you can create separate pages for that for your app domain section here. Now here, just for testing purposes, again, we're just going to put in, your email of choice. Click on Save and Continue. And now we can just go here, just scroll down, just click Save and Continue, Save and Continue, and on the summary page, you can just click on Back to Dashboard. So now that we configured the OAuth consent screen, we can go back to Credentials and click Create Credentials, select OAuth Client ID. Application type, mine is a web application, so I'm going to be selecting that there. Name, again, I'm just going to type in Keycloak Google Demo. And here's important. See the authorized redirect URIs? You're going to want to click on Add URI. And here we're going to copy the URI that's in Keycloak when we created the provider. So if you go back to Keycloak and you'll see we created this Google provider, here is the redirect URI that we want to copy. So copy that. In here, paste it, click Save, or click Create. Now it's going to provide you, a client ID and your client secret. It's going to be blurred out here for, the video, but what you're going to do is copy the client ID, and we're going to copy that into, again, the identity provider in Keycloak. So we'll paste that here in the client ID text field. And now we want to get the client secret. And we're going to paste it here. And now we can go ahead and click Save. Okay, great. So should be ready to test. So before we do that, let's go ahead and go back into my chat. You'll see here the homepage, there's nothing here linking to Google. If I do a refresh, you'll now see an option to log in with Google. And before we even do anything there, if you go to my realm and go to the user section and select to view all users, you're going to see these are all just, fake accounts with fake emails that I created in previous tutorials. So if I go here and select sign in with Google, it's going to ask me, which email I want to use, and I'm already logged in with my Gmail account, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. And you can now see that it says I'm logged in. Welcome CD, my email is displayed here, and if I go back to the user section here and I select view all users again, you'll now see my email associated with my Google account as part of the users for this round. So that's pretty cool. Okay guys, now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do this with Facebook now. So let's go ahead and go back to Identity Providers. Select Add Provider and click Facebook. And we're going to leave this open for a second. Now in another browser, go to developers.facebook.com. Click on My Apps. Here, let's go ahead and create an app. And we're going to go ahead and select Consumer. So we want to utilize the Facebook login to our application. So click Next. And let's go ahead and type a display name. So let's just do, Keycloak Demo. You can leave the rest options as they are for yourself. Click on Create App. It's going to ask you for your login credentials just to verify that this is you creating an app. And now we're here. So once we're here, we're going to go ahead and click on Setup for Facebook Login. We're going to click on Web because this is a web application. Here we're going to type in the home URL for our application. So it's running again on an Apache server locally on a localhost port 8080. Click Save. And actually, I think if we go here to Settings and go to Basic, we're going to have the app ID and app secret. And this is what we're going to actually have for or we're going to paste into the Keycloak provider for Facebook. So if you go back over here, remember we have a client ID section and a secret. So we can go ahead and copy and paste the ID there. And we can go ahead and get the secret, copy that as well, and let's go ahead and click save. So once again, we're here at the Realm login page, and you can see here's the regular login if they wanted to create a login themselves, and then you can have the feature to log in with Google. And let's go ahead and refresh. Now you'll see an option to log in with Facebook. So before doing that, I'm going to once again go here, go to the users section, view all users. You're going to see all the existing users created in previous videos, plus this one that was created with when I did the Google Identity Provider. Now on the login page, let me go back. Let me click on Facebook, and it's going to ask me, if I want to continue as Chris, which is my profile with Facebook. So I'm going to go ahead and select continue as Chris. And now you can see I am logged in once again to the chat app, and it's using my first and last name as it is in Facebook, and here's my email as well. So if I go back to Keycloak and click on view all users again, you're now going to see an entry that's associated to my Facebook account. So we have these 5-6 users that was created just using the registration feature on the Keycloak page. So if I go back here, the main login, I just did register, and I did that for like 5-6 users. And then you can see that I do have my Gmail account also associated with this, and this was with that Google Identity Provider. And I now have my Facebook account also associated here, and this is associated obviously with the Facebook Identity Provider. Okay, y'all, that concludes this video, so thank you for watching. If you found this useful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and you can follow me at my other social media accounts, and that's it. Thanks again. See you next time.